When we're doing lip syncing in Toon Boom Harmony Essentials, it's a fairly straightforward process, but we have to recognize a few things. So with this, it's useful if the mouth is on its own layer. So this is set up right now where the mouth has we have a front view mouth. We have a layer ready for putting in a profile mouth, but there is no drawing prepared for that yet. So do not add artwork to that layer. I'm going to lock that layer so I don't accidentally use it right now. So that will be a layer that we will be adding it in so that we can alternate between a front view or a profile view of the head. But right now we're going to start out with the front view for the head. So when we're doing lip syncing, the way that it works inside of Harmony is we will have separate drawings for the mouth for each phonetic sound. And with that, we really only need to work on 8 phonetic sounds. So we're not building a separate mouth for each letter of the alphabet because our mouth will make a similar shape for certain sounds, not for individual letters. So we will have a sound for the closed mouth consonants, the M's, the B's, the P's, where the lips are pursed together, they're tight and stretched. You will have then an open mouth consonant sound for the harder sounds, the C's, the D's, the K's, R's, where you open the mouth a little bit. We see teeth, but we probably don't see much else, but the lips are now spreading open to see the teeth in the mouth. Then there's the E sound, A, O, U or oo sound, where the lips get a little bit tighter. The F and V, where the upper teeth are typically overlapping the lower lip. So the mouth, we see the teeth, but the mouth is closed. And finally, we're going to have the L sounds, where the tongue is at the roof of the mouth. We see the teeth and the mouth is wide open. Now, Harmony, when we design these different mouth shapes, as well as a neutral or closed mouth, which is the mouth that we've been provided with so far, this basic mouth is the neutral mouth, the mouth that we use when we are not speaking. So now our task before us is to create the different mouths. And there's a couple of things to keep in mind with this. Now, as I've built this face, one thing to be aware of is, I got to find the right layer, and there we go, there's face, is I put a skull underneath. And I did that for a specific reason. Is when we're drawing the different mouths, if we keep the teeth in place where we need them to be for the mouth, what ends up happening is we get a better lip sync animation. But if the teeth are moving all over the place while we're animating, it's not very convincing. So we think about it that as, let's get on the right layer here. As this layer were to move around, there we go. If it opens up, so when we open the mouth, the upper teeth don't move. So that's an important thing when you're building your lip sync animation, is the lower jaw moves, opening the mouth. Then the lips and tongue will change shape to help us to make our separate phonetic sounds. And because it is just based on phonetic sounds, this is why we can have examples of YouTube channels like bad lip reading. With the bad lip reading, we just have to get our basic phonetic sounds. So the next thing that I'm going to do is just extend my non-mouth layers out. So I'll just highlight in the timeline. I hit F5 to extend those layers out. So now I can draw the next layer here that I'm looking for, the mouth front. So we had the profile, or the neutral mouth. I turn on lip syncing and then move to the next mouth, we can see where that first mouth was. So what I want to do with this is to create the first mouth shape. So we go in order based on the handout. So you will notice it says A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And these do not correspond to sounds. It corresponds to how we will have to label our drawings so that Harmony can do automatic lip syncing. If we do not label our drawings, Harmony will go, I have no idea what goes with which sound, and it will not lip sync. So we will go back and rename our mouth drawings as we create those drawings, and then it will all make sense shortly. So the next mouth shape that I want to make is going to be the open one. Now, as building up these mouths, what works really well is to draw all the mouths, but don't do any coloring yet. Just draw the mouths, build up that portion of it first, and then go back and do the necessary coloring. Coloring in the teeth, coloring in the lips, or coloring in the inside of the mouth, and building all of that into the drawing. So first I have the closed mouth that I want to make. Now if I turn on my light box here, you can see where I can now see that skull and teeth, so it gives me something to trace. It gives me a guide to work with here. Now as I'm going to go across, my natural motion, this isn't for what I want to do, isn't the angle. I want to turn my drawing, and a technique that we can use in Harmony is I can hold down Command and Option. If you're on Windows, it would be Control Alt, and now I can turn my drawing so that I can now create the line that I am looking for. So as I move to this closed mouth shape, I can now turn that drawing to make it work. Now if I wanted to work more of the lips on here, where I would add in color and other things, I will be doing that as I move forward. Now I can go back and see the two mouth shapes. If I turn off onion skinning, turn off lightbox even, we can see how the mouth is changing shape. And that's what I'm looking for in the drawing. Now if you do rotate your drawing table and want to get it back or to reset it, the keyboard shortcut is Shift and M, like Mickey Mouse. After getting the first mouth shape done, so I can see my two mouth shapes, now I can move on to my next, which this is going to be where I open the mouth for the closed consonant sound. So with this, the lip is going to open, exposing the teeth. So I have to figure out what shape I am looking for here with the mouth, so that I can see some teeth happening. But for this consonant sound, this is a hard consonant sound. This is the C's and D's and K's. With that sound, I am not going to be showing inside the mouth. I'm only going to see teeth. So I can use the existing teeth that are there as a guide. It is also possible that you could redo the face layer so that it's not solid down at the bottom, and we could add that in. By having it set up so that you're going to have consistency of teeth and jaw, that's going to give your animation a greater believability. Something else to keep in mind is while we're changing the mouth, you could also have different nose and eye shape portions for your characters. So you could be changing, because if you think about when you create or say these phonetic sounds, it's not just your lips and mouth that are moving. You often will be scrunching or compressing around your eyes, so that changes the shape of your eyes and eyebrows while you make your different e, oo sounds. And if you do that, you will have a more expressive character if more than just the mouth section moves. That gives you a much simpler static character if you only move the mouth. But if you're concerned about getting a more lifelike realism in your animation. With more character and more emotion, you want to draw more. You could even just create a whole separate face, so all the features for each of the phonetic sounds, so the whole face is always changing when a character is speaking. It could get a little over the top if your drawings aren't really careful, but it would add a lot more emotion to it. The next mouth that I want to make is where the mouth is now going to open so that we can see it for the E sound. So we're going to see pretty much the same upper portion where you will see the teeth, but you're not going to be able to see, or you'll see into the mouth, and you might even see a little bit of the lower teeth working their way into the drawing as the mouth is open, because the jaw is now coming down. And if you scrub your animation and look at the mouth changing from frame to frame, if you do have reasonable alignment to what you're doing, I'm a little bit off here, then you may decide, then it should look almost like someone is talking, as this is the mouth is choosing to open. The next mouth that you're going to look at is going to show less left or right of the front teeth because it's a much more open mouth, and that's for the A sound. And you may or may not see the bottom teeth as part of the A sound. It depends on the reference that you are working from, as well as your character. So you have to think about how you want to. It's always a good idea while you are working to try and save, making sure that you are taking care to do that on a consistent and regular basis. That will help to prevent a lot of heartache that can happen while you are working on the computer. But the challenge and goal is both to think about creating a similarity between your different mouths and shapes as you go, so that they feel like they belong together. The open mouth shaping, where we get the O's and the U's, those are, we may or may not see teeth. Again, if you go and look up lip sync mouth animation charts, you will find a lot of possible options for what the mouth should look like, and you can decide what fits your animation style or character that you are working with, and then decide which one you want to work with as part of that. Because each one will give you a different flair. There's a lot of resources online to go study for the different mouths as you work with them. So we need the neutral unspeaking mouth, closed mouth consonant, open mouth consonant, then the E's, A's, O's, use. And then finally, the last one that we look for while we are doing it is going to be for the last two. We'll have the F sound where the teeth are on the lower lip. Because now the mouth is biting down on the lower lip, giving that F and V kind of sound. And then finally, the final mouth shape is the L sounds, the liquids, where the tongue is now at the top of the mouth. So that's very similar to the A sound or the A mouth. So you could, when you work with it, if you go for the A mouth, you could use the A mouth as a starting point or as a guide. So you could copy that artwork for consistency and then put that on that final frame, but then change the tongue as part of it, so it will require a little bit of erasing and redrawing to stitch that back together. And once you have your different mouth shapes, then you go into the process of adding in coloring to them. And when doing this, this is where I find one color at a time works well. If you turn off onion skinning, just advance from frame to frame as you need it, grab the paint bucket, and then start filling the artwork, then advancing from frame to frame until it's all colored, and then you will be ready to start animating. Now, if you drew something and realized it's not closing gaps correctly, you do have an option with the paint bucket tool to choose close gaps. You also have an option to draw invisible strokes just to clean it up versus drawing new lines. So it's telling me I've added a stroke but it won't be visible. I'm going to say don't show that again, and I'm going to add in stroke here as well. So now when I use the paint bucket tool, it just closes in that shape, and I need to stroke that off as well. So it closes right there. Don't remember if I closed that one. But the stroke tool can be a really useful way for filling in gaps as you are working. And of course the mouth that I have to fix needed extra, that I copied in, needed extra stroking to finish it. All right. So once you have neutral, closed consonant, open consonant, A, E, or so E, A, sorry, E, A, O, U or U, and then F and V, and then the final one is the L sound. Now the thing to be aware of as we roll forward with this is we need to rename our drawings. If I go into the library for the mouth layer, I will see that I have all these extra drawings. If I look at any other layer, there's just one drawing available. But if I look at the mouth layer, I see there's a bunch of different drawings. You may be tempted to highlight here and type in a new name for it, knowing we have to rename these layers. And if you do that, it will break. It will not work, and it will create a duplicate of the existing drawing. So if I wanted to create a duplicate of this particular drawing, I could now rename it right now, and I would get an additional copy of that drawing in my library. So that is not the way to rename the drawings. That just creates a bunch of extra ones that then we're always fighting which is the right one to use. But if I cycle through this, I'll see that's where all the mouths exist. And when I change it, it changes the exposure of which one I'm looking at. The way to rename the drawings is inside the timeline on the drawing layer. If I right-click, I will see under Drawings, there's an option called Rename Drawing. It also has a keyboard shortcut, Command D. Now if I click on that, the first drawing is going to be renamed with the letter X. Now these names are particular, exacting, have to follow this structure, and you cannot say, well, I know better than Harmony, so I'm going to do it my way. Too bad. Has to be X and it has to be capitalized. The neutral mouth is designated with the letter X, and it must be capital. And I click OK. Now if I look up in my library, we can see suddenly it's now at the end of the line because Harmony alphabetizes numbers before letters. So the numbered frames of my drawing come first. Now I move to the next one. This is my closed mouth consonant. Right click, Drawing, Rename Drawing. This time it's going to be labeled with capital letter A. This will follow on your handout the same order of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And you'll notice that there's the extra mouth for the L that we made, and we will just call it L. That happens after G, so it doesn't script the alphabetizing of the layers, and it works fine. The next one, right-click, Rename Drawing. This now is going to be Drawing B. Then it's going to be Drawing C. D. E. F. G. L. Now, once all the drawings are renamed, something else to keep in mind is as you're doing this, you can have different kinds of drawings. So you could have a mouth layer for angry face. You could have a mouth layer for a scared face. You could have a mouth layer for a happy face or a normal or a neutral face. Each one of these would be a separate mouth layer with named drawings. When you do it, then Harmony can automatically lip sync those layers to match the correct mouth shapes, and you decide which emotion version of the mouth you want to show at that given time. Each mouth is on its own layer, and we'll be seeing how we do that with profile and front views of the mouth as well. Once the mouths are created, the next step is to bring the audio into Harmony. To do that, we go under File, we choose Import, and go find Sound on the list. Once I find that, I will find my file. There's the file. I can grab the file, download that, and it brings the audio in. Now what I can do is stretch out my timeline to fit all of the audio that I have imported. And it looks like we're getting close to the end here. Seconds of audio, frame 320 gives us the bulk of it. Now if I look at this audio and want to hear it or scrub it, if I hit play, nothing happens when I with the sound. It doesn't play back unless you enable it. So you have to enable a sound to play back, so it can play back.
I have no idea.
And if you want to have it happen when you scrub it, then you need to enable that as well. The final steps that we need to do to get the sound to lip sync correctly is to right click, and you will see that the first thing that comes up under it right by your cursor will be lip sync. And what we need to select first is auto lip sync detection, and when you do that, it analyzes the audio that you've brought in. So right click on the sound, lip sync, auto lip sync detection. It does a quick analysis of the audio and figures out how it's going to map the lip syncing to it. That's step one. Step two, and remember this is a two-step process. You don't just bring the sound in and it magically lip syncs your mouth. You have to tell it, because while we do this, now that it's analyzed it, we will tell it to map the lip sync, and we need to say what audio layer, in this case I only have one, and which which drawing layer. If I look here, I'll see that there's a number of different drawing layers. So I could say I want to map the eye to the sound. So if I had separate eyes for each of the different sounds, so I drew my character to be kind of animated, that would work. Mouth front is what I want. Now I can see that I'm lining up the names of the drawings to the different mouths that Harmony will be looking for. And when I do that, I will watch my mouth layer change. And now I can see that it automatically
I have no idea what
has
I'm
mouth.
going to say while I'm listening.
This. One word of caution here: when you bring in your audio, if your audio levels are not robust enough, if you don't have enough audio sound in your waveform, if you look at it here and it mostly looks like the beginning where it was just the background noise and that's your recorded audio, it will not be able to lip sync it properly because there's not enough audio data to analyze. So it's important that you have a decent level of audio when you bring it in. With that, I just turned off the scrubbing sound, but we can see how the mouth is now changed. And I'm going to have to listen to it and find the moment where I'm saying lip sync, because that's an L sound, and that I will manually have to choose the L mouth to go with it. Now the other layers, if I want to see those, I can just go out in my timeline, highlight, F5, that extends it out, and now I have my talking character. It's just a matter of finding that lip sync part. So if I scrub it,
I'm going to say while I'm
so at this point, right in here is where I'm saying lip sync. So instead of this mouth shape, I want to move to the L shape. So in the library, I can now cycle through until I find the, not the, oh, I screwed up. I did not name my L one. I must have got distracted while I was recording. So I'm going to rename it right now. So under drawing, rename drawings. This is for my L, but oh wait, I can't rename the L1 yet. I first have to rename the FFG. This one will be my L. I called it L, but this should have been drawing G for the F sound. So now drawing, rename drawing. This will be G. And go back to my L. Drawing, rename drawing. And this now I can rename as L. So now that I've done that, I can go back to my lip sync. I'll choose map lip sync once more and redo it. And now it changed it a little bit. And now so right in here. So right here, that drawing I want to rename or change to my L. And now if I hit play,
I have no idea what I'm going to say while I am lip syncing in Toon Boom Harmony.
So we can see how Harmony has been able to analyze the audio, change the drawings to match the drawings to the audio for my character to get my animation to shape up. So it's a fairly straightforward process once your mouths are created.
I have no idea what I'm going to say while I am lip syncing.
Working on the eye, what we can do is we want to work the eye. So if I want to make it so that my character can blink, I am going to simply add an empty drawing to the eye layer. So this is the right eye, and we can see it went away. If I turn on Lightbox so I can see what's there, turn on onion skinning so I can see what's there, I can get a sense of what I had before. And I'm going to just go for a real simple closed eye shape. For the right eye, I'll repeat that now for the left eye as well. Insert an empty drawing. Now if I look at that, we'll see eyes open, eyes closed. Turn off onion skinning. So now we can see it looks kind of like he's meditating, a little bit zen here. Now if I close the eyes for about 2 frames, go back and open them. So now I can see how we have the little blink. Oh, I forgot the eyebrows were on this layer as well. So let's see with the eyebrow. I'm going to just let it become a little less. So the eyebrows are expressive with my character. So it changes the face. Now if I hit play, you can see that 2 frames is pretty quick. Depends on how you want your character to blink. And there are times where you may instead want to go kind of half with how you close it. So with that, if I duplicate the drawing that's there, so we'll see that it adds in another copy of it. So that's the right eye. And now with this, I'm going to just draw a line across for the eye closing. And then erase out so it's about trying to oh, did I draw the line on the wrong layer? Oh well. So now if I go to the left eye, repeat that same process, duplicate the drawing, And on this one now, erase. Part of the eye, do the eyebrow. So we can see it gives a little bit more movement. This is more of the frame by frame. And if I need to extend things out, so slowing it down, again, more frames of, and the eyes closing but then popping open faster generally is going to give a better movement to the animation. So now we have the eyes closing. Realistically, if you say your dialogue and find, without you overly focusing on keeping your eyes open, if you pay attention to where you may be blinking when you say certain words or phrases and then incorporate that into your animation. Animation's acting. Pay attention to what you're doing when you're acting it out. Fit that into your project as you go. All right. Questions? Adding into the profile view, I ditched all of the previous layers. We'll be working on the profile mouth now. But what we will be aiming to do is to have a similar structure. So within the face, you're going to be looking for a similar, and I want to just pull that out. Similar overall size so that you can go back and forth between front and side view. Now as you move into the side view, it can be useful to think about setting up, and for the side view, I'm not going to necessarily need all of the same pieces to it, but I need my different views. The right ear is not going to show, the right eye is not going to show. For that, I move into the ear so I can see that the ear trying to get a approximate sizing occurring with the ear. There it is. There's the nose layer. So paying attention to approximate positions for where that nose is occurring with it. So I can completely enclose the layer, or I can use the stroke tool as a way to fit that in. So I have my the skull and jaw, those were just learning layers. We didn't really need those. And now finally we're going to move into the mouth. And now if I look at what is happening with the mouth, layer here, I'm going to extend that one out just so I can get a basic size. So with the mouth, it's trying to get just a basic mouth shape. Now the same way that the mouth, we have all of the different mouths that happen. We need now the different mouth shape profiles to occur. So closed, then BP, and move into more of an open mouth. And drawing different mouths and how you go about doing it, how you're going to put in your teeth, etc. It's going to be up to you as you define your character. So you need a set of mouths to be your profile mouth, in the same way that you have your front mouth. Now, if you need more guide to look at, you can extend out some of the other layers, so you have that as a guide to follow as well. So eventually you will have mouth profile with your different mouth shapes, and for the facial features that you need for your character. Now, the nose doesn't necessarily have to be on its own layer, but it can sometimes be useful to have it on its own layer when it comes to animating. If you just have a base head shape and all the features are on separate layers, it will make it generally easier when we start animating. It seems like it's a lot of layers in the beginning, but we can just parent them all to a peg, and then we just see one peg in our timeline, so it's nice and clean, and it makes it easier to ultimately control.